Today we are going to be looking at the anatomy of an eye. The study of the eye, or eyes, is also known as optometry, and the person who studies optometry is called an optometrist. The eye itself is commonly known as the eyeball due to its globe-like shape. The first layer of the eye is called the sclera. The sclera is also known as the whites of the eye. It's made up of dense avascular connective tissue, and because of its durability, it acts as a protective layer of the eye. For example, sometimes you get things caught in your eye, like an eyelash or sometimes a hair. People use different methods to get these things out of their eye, like washing out with water, or even just using the pad of your finger. And although it can be uncomfortable and cause your eyes to water, the sclera is what makes it possible to do this without causing damage or pain. The next part of the eye is called the cornea. As you can see, the cornea is situated within the sclera and protrudes due to the shape of the aqueous humor that sits behind it. This also acts as an extra layer of protection that covers the iris and the pupil. The next part of the eye is called the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor is a watery substance that sits directly in front of the iris and pupillae. This fluid is responsible for providing both the lens and cornea the nourishment that they need. As you can see, it also bulges out from the eye's spherical shape, and as stated before, causes the cornea to bulge as well. Next, we have the iris and the pupil. The iris is the coloured part of the eye. The colour of a person's eye depends on each individual's genetics. For example, some people have green eyes, some people have blue eyes, and some people have brown eyes. There are two main muscles of the iris called the sphincter pupillae and the dilator pupillae, also known as the pupil. These muscles control how much light enters the eye. Let's take a closer look at the iris and pupil. This is an example of an iris. This person obviously has green eyes. When light is reflected into the eye, the sphincter pupillae muscle contracts in a circular motion, giving the appearance of a smaller pupil and limits how much light is entering the eye. However, when there is not much light available to reflect off an object, or the light source is taken away completely, the dilator pupillae contracts and allows the pupil to dilate or get bigger, which in turn allows more light into the eye. Going back to our diagram now, the next part of the eye we are going to see is called the lens. The lens sits directly behind the iris and pupil and acts like a camera lens that filters and focuses the light entering from the pupil and directs it through the vitreous humor and onto the retina at the back of the eye. The lens has the ability to change formation so that you can focus on both close objects and far away objects. This is also known as near and far sightedness. Next, we have the choroid. The choroid is a layer of membrane that covers the entire eye except for the iris and pupil. Its blood vessels provide nourishment for the entire eye. It is usually dark brown in colour, and because of its pigment, it also absorbs excess light to stop it from scattering around inside the eyeball. After the choroid, we have the retina. The retina is a delicate inner lining at the back of the eye. This layer consists of cells that are known as rods and cones. These cells are also known as photoreceptors, and millions of them are found within the retina itself. These photoreceptors work together to establish lightness and darkness of an image, as well as the colours of an image, and then turning all of that information into electrical impulses to send to the optic nerve, which attaches at the back of the eyeball. We'll hear more about that soon. Next, we have the vitreous humour. The vitreous humour is a gel-like substance that fills the area between the lens and the retina. It is more dense than the aqueous humour at the front of the eye and is responsible for both maintaining the shape of the eye and providing nutrients. Next, we have the optic nerve. The optic nerve is attached to the back of the eyeball and is made up of nerve cells and photoreceptors. As stated before, it is attached to the retina. Although the optic nerve is part of the eye, it is considered to be part of the central nervous system as it is responsible for sending the electrical impulses retrieved from the retina to the brain so that they can be converted into images. Finally, we have the optic disc. The optic disc is also known as the blind spot. The blind spot is located where the optic nerve attaches to the eyeball. This means that the optic disc is the only area in the eye that is not reinforced by a protective white layer of the sclera. This area also lacks photoreceptors, and therefore any light that focuses on it cannot actually be seen. However, the optic disc or blind spot does not impair our vision. This is due to our brain using an advanced process known as filling in to cope with the lack of contribution from this area of the eye. And that concludes the anatomy of the eye.